government should significantly increase its development of the Arctic by providing financial and technical support for ocean thermal energy conversion systems. Contention 1 is inherency. Ocean thermal energy conversion, OTEC, is critical to respond to climate change, but the technology is overlooked and lacks support. O'Reilly 2024. The ocean holds immense potential. OTEC stands out as a promising technology. OTEC can generate electricity while contributing to a more sustainable future. Innovative solutions are crucial and are a crucial alternative to fossil fuels. Contention 2 is warming. Arctic warming risks a global climate crisis. Action now is key. INN 2024. The Arctic is warming up to 4 times faster than the global average. The Arctic recorded its warmest summer to date, driven by feedback loops. The urgency of the Arctic crisis demands more comprehensive action. Reducing emissions and climate research are critical. Immediate action becomes increasingly clear. And Arctic communities are uniquely vulnerable. OTEC is key to solve. Tamiz and Denser 2022. Arctic regions have drastic effects on climate change. Arctic warming exacerbates food insecurity. Declining wildlife is recognized as a major threat to food security. OTEC is promising. It can be used in an Arctic environment and can exploit the temperature difference between air ambient temperature and ocean water temperature. The energy source is almost unlimited. Specifically, OTEC can power carbon capture technology, Olim et al. 2025. The 2018 report noted the need for widespread negative emissions technologies to limit warming. OTEC is a form of renewable energy that uses cold, deep ocean water and warm surface ocean water to power a heat engine. Studies consider OTEC as a method of clean electricity. OTEC has also been suggested as a clean energy source for negative emissions technology. OTEC offers exciting new approaches for carbon capture plants into the deep ocean. And climate change risks extinction. Only renewable energy can save us. Carrington 2024. Earth's vital signs have hit record extremes. The future of humanity hangs in the balance. Temperatures of oceans hit an all-time high, driven by record burning of fossil fuels, which jeopardizes life on Earth. Climate change has already displaced millions. Oil and gas dominate. There was stiff resistance, and every tenth of a degree of warming is critically important. We need bold, transformative change. Contention 3 is solvency. The plan solves. Government support, including financial incentives and a demonstration plant, are key to large-scale deployment of OTEC. Jalil et al. 2021. Established energy companies are keen to invest in renewable projects. There is a need for government support. This support could be fiscal incentives, low interest rates, access to coastal land, Navy support for installation. The main challenge to scaling is confidence. Experience gained from building and operating will allow engineers and material specialists to identify suitable designs. The potential is enormous. Estimates have impeded developments. More awareness will help attract support for measures to speed up the adoption of OTEC. I now stand ready for a cross.
Your Jalil evidence says OTEC needs international government support. Why would support from the U.S. alone be enough?
The plan provides money and technical support to build a demonstration OTEC plan, which our evidence says is key to expanding. U.S. support helps encourage investment in OTEC in other countries.
Your Olim evidence assumes that OTEC plans would include technology like direct air capture and carbon sequestration, or DACs, to remove carbon from the atmosphere. Does your plan include funding for that?
No, but it doesn't have to. Our evidence says OTEC provides a power source for DACs, which is the only thing stopping them from being used more. OTEC makes DACs impossible in places where they can't be powered now.
Isn't it true that desalination would be far more useful in places that are currently undergoing water shortages, such as the Middle East or the Western United States?
Yes, but that's why with our water advantage, we will be distributing the water that we desalinate in the Arctic to those other countries that are currently facing shortages.
Okay, well, you say the plant happens in the Arctic, but where exactly is this demonstration plant being built?
It would likely be near places in the Arctic that the U.S. has control over, like Alaska, where there's enough of a temperature difference between the ocean surface and the deeper water where OTEC could work.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That's cross.
Thank you.
Why did you ask? Okay, the off-time roadmap is going to be 1 disad and then case in the order of the 1AC. Is anyone not ready? Cool. First off, the Russia disadvantage. Russia's economy is stable now, but profits from oil exports are key. Fenton and Colliander, 411. The Russian economy faces long-term challenges. However, the Russian economy has weathered the storm. Despite predictions the economy could collapse, it has not only endured but adapted. Profits from hydrocarbon exports allowed the Russian state to limit spending trade-offs. As money pours into the country's base, domestic defense companies are able to offer high salaries. And renewable energy like OTEC is a critical threat to Russian oil. Sokenver and Sohag, 2022. Rapid energy transitions, a key challenge for Russia, is loss of a key source of revenue. This study explores impacts of energy transitions on oil trade between Russia and its partners. Findings reveal risks facing Russian oil exports. Renewable energy has been a substitute for oil. Clean energy policies are a threat to Russian oil exports. And fossil fuels are key to Russia's economy. The plan creates an economic shock. Smith-Nonini, 2022. To build your economy too tightly around oil is a very bad idea. Russia's over-reliance puts the nation at risk every time oil prices drop. It is hard to overstate the centrality of hydrocarbons to the Russian economy. And economic shocks risk total collapse. The impact is nuclear war. Modal, 2023. Russia is fragile. It's not difficult to imagine a scenario growing economic instability will compel Russia's units to seek independence. If the spark does come, Russian collapse be destabilizing and violent. React with violence to any secessionism. Russian groups might turn on each other and use violence. All these dangers would be compounded by the presence of thousands of nuclear weapons. On to case. First on the warming advantage. Climate change is irreversible. We're too far gone. Hatch 2024. People don't understand carbon. Carbon will still be blanketing the Earth in 1,000 years. That's why climate change is largely irreversible. There's no way to make climate change go away. Impacts would keep getting worse over centuries. The path to zero is fantastically challenging. And turn. OTEC causes long-term warming. Carnegie Science 2015. OTEC could facilitate direct physical cooling. Simulations showed that while temperatures could be cooled, warming would actually start to increase just 50 years after the pipes go into use. After 60 years, the pipes would cause an increase in global temperature of up to 1.2 degrees Celsius. Over centuries, pipes put the Earth on a warming trend towards a temperature increase of 8.5 degrees Celsius. And no impact to climate change. Humans can adapt. Lomberg, 2022. Can humans adapt? The overwhelming answer is yes. History shows very clearly that we can adapt. Studies show we adapt to all negative impacts. We're also more resilient. We know how to deal with that much better. Humans adapt. The models show us we will do so. On solvency. OTEC doesn't work. It's too expensive and historically has failed. Rossi, 2024. OTEC has been prohibitively expensive. Tech requires a floating offshore platform, costs tens of millions of dollars. Lockheed Martin jumped into OTEC. It didn't go anywhere. Offshore plants have failed because the cost of the tech and large platform required. Not one offshore OTEC plant is operating. I now stand ready for cross-ex.
You say our plan hurts Russia's oil money, but does your evidence say one OTEC plant in Alaska is enough to cause that?
Not by itself, but our evidence says that clean energy products like this one are part of a bigger trend. When countries switch to clean energy, they need less oil. That hurts Russia's oil sales over time.
Okay. You say OTEC is too expensive and hasn't worked in the past, but our plan gives money to test it. Does your evidence say that a government-funded test won't help?
Our evidence doesn't talk specifically about a test plan like yours, but it shows that historically even big companies gave up on OTEC because it was really hard and really expensive. So even though your plan might help a little bit, there's no proof that it could fix any of the major shortcomings that we've seen OTEC have.
You also say that OTEC can make the Earth warmer in the long run, but your study is about ocean pipes, not real functioning OTEC plants. Does your evidence look at how actual OTEC plants work?
No, the study looks at ocean pipes, not real OTEC pipes, but it still warns about specifically mixing deep ocean water, how that can change cloud cover and ice. That's the same process that OTEC uses, so we should still be wary of the risks.
Thank you.
Okay, Judge, I'm going to give an off-time roadmap. First, I'll be extending and answering my warming advantage and solvency, and then I'll be answering the Russian disadvantage. Okay, now on to warming advantage. First, an overview. The impact of the warming advantage is that climate change causes extinction. The plan solves the impact because OTEC provides clean energy and removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Vote affirmative because case outweighs on magnitude. Climate change is an existential crisis that can kill us all. Only stopping warming has a chance of stopping the planet from being cooking us all alive. Now on to the line by line. They say that climate change is irreversible, but that is a misread. Extend our OLM 2025 evidence. OTEC powers DAX, which removes CO2 from the air and permanently stores it in offshore reservoirs. OLM uses the Earth System Climate Model to show that this works at scale for at least 500 years with minimum environmental impact. That's not speculative, that's cutting-edge peer-reviewed climate modeling. The Hatch 2024 card literally says that the only way we can stop climate change from getting worse is to reach zero emissions. This is exactly how we do this. They say that OTEC causes warming, but that's not about our plan. Extend our Orion 2024 card. Arctic mixes water at levels which is disrupting the ocean. The Carnegie Science 2025 evidence simulates ocean pipes, not OTEC. It does not account for real-world plant size, location, or usage. They say that humans can adapt to climate change, but that's not a reason to do nothing. Extend our Canton 2024 card. It says that billions face extreme heat, ecosystem collapse, mass migration, and possible extinction. Our advantage is about stopping the climate feedback loops, sea level rises, and irreversible Arctic warming. You can't adapt to the depth of the Greenland ice sheet. The Lombard 2022 card says that climate change just makes people only slightly less rich by 2021, but that's assuming that we do mitigation, which only the affirmative can do. Now on to solvency. They say that OTEC is too expensive, but that is just wrong. Extend our 1AC Jalil evidence. OTEC is not commercially viable yet because of the lack of governmental support, not because it's fundamentally flawed. Our evidence specifically says demonstration plants and demonstration projects are critical to test cold water pipes, prove reliability, and generate operational data that unlocks private investment. Their Rossi card only cites historical failures and general costs of concerns, but our evidence is more recent, specific, and explains how costs drop after scaling. That is the reason our plan is the necessary tipping point. Now onto their Russian disadvantage. First, non-uniqueness. The Russian economy is declining now. Edwards and Chernova, 2025. Since Moscow's invasion of Ukraine, Russia's economy grew faster than all major economies. This is just a mirage. Growth is rapid but unnatural. Russia may soon feel the pain. Russia may limit driving up prices. Trump said of Russia's economy that it was in big trouble. Russia's worsening economic problems can cause Putin to come to the negotiation table. Next, lonely can turn. History proves that oil experts embolden Russia. Moran 2022. A look back at past conflicts reveals a strong correlation between soaring oil prices and Moscow's willingness to assert its aggression. The 2008 war in Georgia, the 2014 seizure of Crimea, oil prices were at a historically elevated level. The gains imbued the Kremlin with a sense of immunity. In each case, the war was preceded by several years of rising oil prices. Specifically, oil experts fund the war in Ukraine. Telga 2022. There seems to be a correlation between high prices and Russia's aggression. In 2008, Russia invaded Georgia. Oil was averaging $119 a barrel. If there ever was a perfect time, it is right now. Russia is reaping the benefits of high oil prices and wreaking havoc to its neighbors. Russia will continue its havoc when the world's most vulnerable is importing its highly priced oil. Lastly, no impact. Russia wouldn't escalate using nuclear war. Kikaminko 2022, a wide range of experienced analysts have concluded that Russia's nuclear weapon will only be used in the extremes. Russia's nuclear arms are a political deterrent, unlikely to be employed. Russia's commentators have played down the likelihood of nuclear usage. I now stand ready for cross-examination.
You say our Russia argument is wrong because their economy is already weak, but if that's true, wouldn't a new shock from your plan make things even worse?
No. Our evidence is saying that Russia is staying afloat because of short-term boosts like the war spending and leftover savings. One clean energy project in Alaska isn't going to make that much of a difference. Their problems are much bigger than that.
Okay, thank you. And you say that our warming argument is about ocean pipes, not OTEC, but OTEC still causes the movement of deep ocean water. Why wouldn't that cause the same problems that we described?
Because our OTEC systems don't move the water in the same way. Our evidence says that they mix the water slowly and just at the right depth, so it doesn't really hurt the ocean or sea ice. Your study is based on extreme changes that don't really happen with real OTEC.
Okay. And you say that our solvency evidence is old, but even with a test plant, how do you know that private companies will want to invest?
Our evidence says that that is exactly the missing piece. Yeah. Companies don't want to invest if they see it actually working. A test plant shows that it's possible and viable and gives investors more confidence. It's not a sure thing, but it's the first step in the right direction.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's take prep for the neg block.
We will be taking prep. Please run our time starting now. I'll start now. First, an overview on the DISAD. The impact of the Russia disadvantages nuclear war caused by economic collapse. The plan causes the impact because U.S. investment in the Arctic. OTEC contributes to the global clean energy transition, which reduces demand for Russian oil exports, undermining the main pillar of Russia's economy. Russia is a petrostate, which means their economy entirely relies on oil. The economic pressure of renewable energies accelerates instability, and our model evidence says that even a small shock could trigger Russia's collapse, leading to civil war and nuclear conflict. Vote negative because the disadvantage outweighs case on time frame and risk. Economic fragility is already building in Russia now, so collapse would happen sooner than climate impacts. And unlike climate change, which plays out over decades, the risk of a nuclear chain reaction from Russian collapse is fast, unpredictable, and existential. Next, the disadvantage outweighs Russian nuclear use is a global catastrophe. Alexander 24. Putin has issued his strongest threat yet. To believe Putin is not serious is a dangerous assumption. Global annihilation is overwhelming. There exists a bias because nuclear war did not happen, but this can't be guaranteed. Now onto the line by line. They say that Russia's economy is declining now, but first our Fenton and Coliander 25 evidence answers this. It says that Russia's economy is still holding on because of war, spending and oil money. Things look shaky, but it hasn't collapsed yet. That means the plan could still be the final push that causes real damage. Second, even their own card says that the economy looks strong on the outside, so it's just pretending to be strong. That proves it's fragile and the plan makes things worse. Next, they say that Russia becomes dangerous when it has a lot of oil money, so taking that money helps. But first, our Smith and Onini 22 evidence answers this. It says that when Russia loses oil money, it doesn't just get weaker, it risks falling apart, and that is not safer but more dangerous. Second, being bold and being broken are two different things. Our argument is that the plan makes Russia unstable, not just less aggressive, and that instability is what ends up leading to nuclear conflict. And third, the turn is wrong. Low oil prices increase the risk of conflict. Blankenship et al. 24. When prices decline, petrostates throw caution to the wind. Low prices increase conflict through oil gambits. During the low oil price era, for example, Iran, Iraq, and Venezuela all initiated disputes. Russia's decision to escalate in Syria was to divert attention from the country's economic woes amidst low oil prices. Declines in oil wealth lead petrostates to initiate conflict. When oil prices are high, petrostates may be self-confident to refrain from picking fights. Next, they say that cutting oil money is good because it slows down Russia's war, but first, our Model 23 evidence answers this. It says that if Russia loses oil money too fast, it could fall into civil war and chaos, and that chaos includes thousands of nuclear weapons with no one in control. And second, hurting their economy without a backup plan just makes everything worse. The plan sounds helpful, but could backfire by causing Russia to collapse in a dangerous way. Third, renewable energy is an existential threat to Russia. The plan risks instability and conflict. Lockhart 22. Demand for oil is a crucial source of revenue for Russia and may decline irreversibly as the global energy transformation gathers momentum. This threatens to be destabilizing for both Russia and the West. Change could be destabilizing. The Kremlin's bet on hydrocarbons is a high-stakes gamble, with less oil with the risk of triggering mass protests and social unrest. This would heighten feelings of vulnerability and contribute to even greater tensions between Russia and the West. Russia would probably pose an even greater threat as the temptation to use force would grow, destabilize Russia, and increase the threat that it poses. Next, they say no impact, but first, Russia would use a nuclear weapon if their economy collapsed. That's our model evidence. Russia is a fragile state and economic instability will push them towards collapse. If Russia has no other options, they will use nuclear weapons to stop and end their country. Their evidence is old at best, and it's from the time before the invasion of Ukraine and doesn't assume that Russia has become more aggressive after their invasion. That's time. I now stand ready for cross-ex.
Okay, so my first question is that you say the plan hurts Russia by speeding up the move away from oil, but how does one clean energy plant in Alaska make really much of a difference?
So not by itself. One plant alone is not enough, but our evidence says that as the U.S. builds more clean energy projects, especially in places like the Arctic, it ends up sending a strong message to the world, which causes other countries to use less oil too, and that follow-on hurts Russia's oil money over time.
For my next question, you say that losing oil money could make Russia collapse, but doesn't your own evidence also say that countries that lose money sometimes start wars?
Yes, and that is our entire point. Our Model 23 evidence says that when oil prices drop and economy declines, Russia then has to deal with challenges from political groups that may want to violently break off or secede from the country. Our Blankenship card adds that when petrostates, countries that depend on selling oil, face economic decline, they have historically started violent civil conflicts to distract their citizens from how badly their economy is doing. Our DA is about both how cutting oil money increases desperation, which raises the chance of war, and government collapse, which could turn into civil wars all at the same time.
Okay, and for my last question, you say that Russia is weak, but if that's true, wouldn't it fall apart no matter what we do?
Not necessarily. Our evidence says that Russia may be weak, but it is still holding together. But if we take away more of their oil money, that could be the final push that makes them collapse. So without the plan, they are able to stay stable for a while.
Okay, that's all my questions. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
The order of the 1 and R is going to be just case. First I'll go on warming, and then I'll talk about water and solvency. Is anyone not ready? This is 4 minutes, right?
Yes.
Okay. First on water, warming inevitable. Extend that climate change can't be fully stopped. Our 1NC #2024 evidence says that even if we stop adding carbon to the air, the damage from past pollution keeps warming the planet for hundreds, if not thousands of years. That means sea levels keep rising and ice keeps melting no matter what. But for our evidence, Hatch focuses on the long term, which tells us what happens after we stop polluting, not just what happens if we build something new. Our card explains real Earth systems, while their Olam card uses a computer model that guesses what might happen if a bunch of big tech is built. We explain why warming keeps going even after society is able to stop polluting and reach zero emissions. Their argument skips that and just says clean energy solves it. They say only they stop extinction, but we say it's already too late to stop all of it, so their impact is overstated. Also extend that OTEC makes warming worse. Our 1NC Carnegie Science 2015 evidence says big underwater pipes like the ones used in OTEC can mess up ocean currents, reduce clouds, and make the Earth hotter, even up to 8.5 degrees Celsius if lots of OTEC is built. Prefer our argument because their card just says OTEC might be fine, but ours is from real scientists who modeled how deep ocean pipes change the whole climate system. They say our card isn't about their plan, but they also say their plan scales up OTEC. If they want OTEC use to grow, our warning applies. Their plan might help with emissions, but if the tech itself makes the planet hotter, this cancels out the benefits. This is a turn. We don't just say their plan doesn't solve warming, we say it makes it worse. That means you vote neg even if you care most about climate. This is an independent reason to vote neg. On to the adaptation argument. Extend that humans can adapt to warming. Our 1NC Lomberg 2022 evidence says people are already safer than ever, even after more than 1 degree of warming. We can handle challenges like heat or rising seas if we plan ahead and use technology wisely. But for our argument, because Lomberg uses real-life data, he's not saying climate change is fake, just that we're good at dealing with it. Their Carrington card says scary stuff like billions could die, but that doesn't explain exactly how or when that would happen. They say you can't adapt to melting ice, but people adapt to hard things all the time. We've done it before and we can do it again. On to solvency. OTEC has not worked before. Our 1NC WASI 2024 evidence says many people have tried to build OTEC and it keeps failing because it's super expensive. The pipes are fragile and storms break the equipment. Even big companies like Lockheed Martin or presidents like Jimmy Carter gave up. Prefer our evidence because WASI shows the pattern. It's not just one failure, it's many. It explains why OTEC struggles, not just that it hasn't worked yet. Their Jalal card is all about what might happen in the future if things go well. But our card shows that things haven't worked in the past and why that's unlikely to change. Saying the government should support it doesn't fix the tech problems. Pipes still break, platforms still cost too much, it's still hard to build in the ocean. Believing OTEC will work isn't the same as proving that it will. We say history matters more than hope. Vote neg on presumption.
Now onto our warming advantage. Extend our warming overview. Climate change is an extinction level threat. Only by reaching zero emissions and removing carbon already in the air can we stop the worst feedback loops. Our OLM 2025 evidence says our plan powers direct air capture using OTEC, which works for 500 plus years with minimal environmental risk. That is what it takes to prevent collapse. Vote affirmative because we outweigh on magnitude. Climate change affects everyone on Earth and threatens billions of lives. Also outweigh on probability. Our plan directly cuts emissions and removes carbon. Neg only guesses that something bad might happen. Now onto warming. They say warming is inevitable, but first our OLM 2025 evidence answers. It says that reaching net zero emissions, which clean energy like OTEC helps us do, plus carbon removal can stop warming and keep the climate stable long term. Second, giving up because things are hard isn't a reason to stop trying. Our plan does exactly what science says we need. They say OTEC causes warming, but first our O'Reilly 2024 evidence answers. It says that real OTEC plants gently mix water in a safe way that doesn't disturb the ocean or melt sea ice. Second, their Carnegie Science 2015 evidence doesn't even talk about OTEC. It simply simulates generic deep ocean pipes. That's like blaming wind turbines for tornadoes. It's simply not the same thing. They say humans can adapt, but first our Carrington 2024 evidence answers. It says that billions face extreme heat, food shortages, and collapse. We can't adapt to losing the Greenland ice sheet or having methane explode from permafrost. Second, just because we adapted before does not mean that we can handle global extinction level damage. Next, onto solvency. They say OTEC hasn't worked, but first our Jalil 2023 evidence answers. It says that OTEC isn't failing because it's broken. It's just underfunded. Our plan builds a test plant, collects data, and proves that it's ready for investment. Second, their Rossi 2024 evidence is outdated and negative. It only talks about old projects, not current tech or government backing. Now onto the Russia DA. They say that collapse is faster than climate change, but first our Edwards and Cheranova 2025 evidence answers. It says Russia's economy is already unstable with fake stats and internal problems. That means collapse isn't caused by the plan, it is already happening. Second, their link is too small. Even if they admit our plan is just a signal, one Arctic project doesn't crash a superpower. And extend our cutting oil money makes Russia less aggressive. Our 2AC Moran 2022 and Telga 2022 evidence says that high oil prices fuel war. Every time Russia had a lot of oil money, it attacked someone. Cutting that money slows down its war machine. Prefer our evidence because number one is based on history. The Russian invasions of Georgia, Crimea, and Ukraine all happened after oil booms. Next, it's specific to Russian aggression, not general economic theory. They say that lower prices cause more aggression, but our Telga 2022 evidence says that low oil makes Russia weaker, not bolder. Less money equals fewer tanks, fewer bombs, and less war overall. And second, their Blankenship 2024 evidence is about other countries too, but we focus on Russia. And even if desperation rises, they have a lot less power to act on it. Thank you. Please vote affirmative.
So first, to give an off-time roadmap, the order is going to be the Russia decide and then case in the order of solvency and then the warming advantage with an overview on top of the decide. The impact of the Russia disadvantage is global nuclear war. The plan causes the impact because it's part of a global clean energy shift which lowers oil demand, that cuts off Russia's oil money, which is the backbone of its war economy. Our model evidence says that Russia's already fragile system could collapse under just a little more pressure. And collapsing a country with thousands of nuclear weapons is incredibly dangerous. Vote negative because the disadvantage outweighs on time frame. Climate change happens over decades and Russia's collapse could happen this year. Risk. The 1 year myth that Russia is already unstable, and that means the plan is exactly the kind of push that causes total breakdown. Next, magnitude. Nuclear war is fast, it kills billions, and even a 1% chance is too high. They think collapse is already happening, but first our Model 23 evidence answers this. It says that collapse needs a trigger and Russia's economy is shaky, but still functioning. The plan is a spark that tips it over. Second, even if things are bad now, that proves that things are fragile, meaning small shocks like the plan are even more dangerous. Next, they say the plan is just a signal, not a cause, but first our Lockhart 22 evidence answers this. It says that the US doing OTEC could send a signal to Russia that many things are changing and ensure the US is committed to renewable energies, which cause them to fear energy transition. But our own Jalil evidence also answers this. It says that the plan's government support and creating a demonstration plant would drastically increase interest in OTEC around the world that causes a green energy transition that Lockhart evidence says collapses Russia. They say that cutting oil money makes Russia less aggressive, but first Smith Nonini 22 and Model 23 evidence answers this. It says that losing oil money makes Russia collapse, not calm down. No government equals no control over nukes. Second, less money does not equal less danger. A desperate broken state can be just as aggressive, just less predictable. Next, they say our Telgo card proves that less oil equals less wars, but first our Blankenship 24 evidence answers this. It says that low oil prices creates 3 risks. Russia fights to seize new oil, starts conflicts to distract its people, and lashes out to signal strength. Second, even if Toga is right about spending, our argument is why countries act aggressively under economic pressure, not just that if they have the budget to go to war. Next, they say aggression also happens during oil booms, but first, our argument is not just about boldness, it's about collapse and desperation. Booms lead to wars of choice and crashes lead to wars of survival. Second, desperate aggression is worse because less rational and more dangerous, especially for a nuclear-armed regime. Next, onto solvency. External 1 and C Rossi 24 evidence which says that OTEC hasn't worked in real-world tests because it's too expensive, unreliable, and easily damaged. Even big companies like Lockheed Martin give up after trying. Prefer evidence because Rossi looks over multiple failed projects across decades, not just one study. It explains why OTEC fails because it's expensive and hard to build, not just that it hasn't worked. It's based on real-world results and not just computer simulation or guesses. The Astro Leo card assumes that OTEC will work if people see a demo, but our evidence says that demos have already happened, they just failed. Next, on to warming. Extend that we will adapt to warming. Our 1 and C Lombard 22 evidence says that humans have already adapted to more than 1 degree Celsius of warming and can continue to do so even with planning a new technology. Prefer evidence because Lombard uses real-world data and history instead of what might happen in the future because of climate change. The evidence doesn't give any examples, timelines, or ways that extinction will happen. Adapted is proven. Okay.
Okay, so now I'll be delivering the second affirmative rebuttal speech for this round. Before I begin, I'd like to do an off-time roadmap. First, I'll be extending our warming advantage, then extending solvency, as well as extending our answers that we're giving for answering the Russia disad. Does everybody get that so far? Okay, awesome. Now to my speech. First, the impact of the warming advantage is extinction. Climate change affects the entire planet. Billions of people are at risk from food shortages, extreme heat, and tipping points such as methane release or sea level rise. The plan is the only way to stop this threat. Our Olin 2025 card says that powering carbon removal via OTEC cuts emissions and pulls CO2 out of the air for 500 plus years. That's what the science says we need to do to stop runaway warming. Vote affirmative because we win on magnitude. Climate collapse affects everyone. There's no safe spawn, so quote-unquote safe zone when the earth cooks. Vote for us on time frame. Their own Russia evidence says that it takes years for collapse. We're seeing the effects of climate change right now. Ice melts, heat waves, fires, etc. Even if both sides talk about world-ending threats, ours is real and proven. Theirs is a hypothetical that assumes Russia will have a total breakdown and start firing off nukes. The answer, they'll say that we can adjust and we can adapt to warming, but that's wrong. First, our Carrington 2024 evidence answers this. It says that billions will face life-ending risk, not just being hot, but total collapse of parts of nature that we need to live and homes being destroyed in deadly heat, etc., etc. Second, the scaling matters. We've never had to adapt to things like the second largest body of ice in the world melting or methane gas explosions before. There's no such historical playbook for how to deal with these type of threats. Next, On to solvency. They said that OTEC has failed before, but first our Jalil 2023 card evidence answered this. It says past failures were due to funding, not broken technology. The plan creates the test plan to prove that OTEC can work. Second, their Rossi 2024 card talks about the history. It doesn't address modern technology or how governmental backing can help these situations. Saying nothing can change because it failed once is like saying planes don't work because the Wright brothers crashed in their first early test. We can still solve for what we're solving for with OTEC. Next, on to the Russia dissad. I only really need to extend one argument because that's all really our side needs. Cutting oil makes Russia less aggressive. R2AC Moran 2022 and Telga 2022 card answers this by saying that Russia gets bold when oil prices are high. That's when they invaded Russia, Crimea, and Ukraine. Our evidence says the opposite. It says that by reducing Russia's oil profits, it can take away from their war funds. But for our evidence, because it's historical, not hypothetical, it shows a real-world, real-life pattern of when wars were tied to high oil profits, and it's specific to Russia, not just some general theory about oil southern countries. They say that we might cause collapse and chaos, but first, our Edwards and Genova 2025 card already answered this. It says Russia's economy was already in deep, serious trouble. It was about to fall apart for spending too much on the war in Ukraine. This means that collapse isn't new. It's already happening with or without our plan. Next, they say that our plan is just a signal. Well, if that's true, then it can't be the spark that causes nuclear war. Their link is too small to outweigh our extinction outcome. Next, they say that low oil causes desperation, but first, our Telga evidence already answered this. It says that less oil equals less money and less power. Desperate countries can't fight long wars without funds or resources. Second, they say that even if Russia is mad, that doesn't mean that they can outright win a war. Desperation is weakness, not dangerous. It makes Russia less capable, not more. Vote affirmative. Thank you.